Good to see you. Welcome to Connecticut Audubon's webinar for tonight. If you want to, in the chat, you can, why don't you tell me where your backyard is, where you're coming from. And then maybe if you've got like a backyard specific question, you can throw that in there too. We will be doing Q&A at the end. So we're still bringing people in. We're at 63. We've got almost 200 people registered for this webinar tonight. So we're going to give everybody a couple of minutes to file in. Oh, New Milford. All right, Linda. Easton, Orange, Branford. We're covering the whole state. Great job. I'm glad that means our message is getting out there. East Lyme, Woodstock, Sherman, Seymour, Danbury. Wow. I'm in Stamford in case anybody cares. Another one from Woodstock. I wonder if you guys are neighbors. Columbia, Tolland, Southington. All right. Welcome. Keep it up. Westport. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you all for joining our bird-friendly backyard webinar tonight. My name is Melissa Gallagher Smith, and I am the Director of Development for the Connecticut Audubon Society. In just a few minutes, I will be turning it over to our host for the evening. But before I do, I have just a few housekeeping notes to share with you. First is that I will be keeping everyone on mute for the duration of the webinar. That's in case your dog barks or the doorbell rings or whatever. But if you have questions, please feel free to drop those into the chat at any point. At the end, we will make time to answer as many questions as we can, and hopefully we'll get to yours. Next is that we will be recording tonight's webinar. So if you would like to turn your screen off, please do so now. I don't think that'll be a problem because we're going to have the slideshow up for most of the presentation. You will be able to find tonight's recording in our member portal, but you'll have to give it a couple of days before we post it for editing. If you have any questions about accessing the member portal or about becoming a member, you can message me. You can also email me. My email will be available to you at the end of the webinar. And we will also send an email follow-up from tonight's presentation. Lastly, the captioning feature is available if you would like to use it. You can turn it on by locating the toolbar at the bottom of your screen and clicking Show Captions. As I said, we are recording tonight's webinar, and it is being transcribed, apparently. Okay. I do want to thank you all again for joining us. I have two items of business that you might be interested in. We have had this bird-friendly fall campaign going on for the past couple of months. It's an idea that we came up with after the success of Migration Magic in the spring to really kind of keep the bird momentum going in Connecticut for the fall when birds are making their southward journey from their summer homes. We had sponsors for that, and they are offering tonight 2 raffle gifts for our participants. One is a way that you can be bird friendly with your coffee cup. It's called Birds and Beans, and it's a bird friendly coffee that is grown in, I don't know where, Ecuador maybe. But it's bird friendly. They use sustainable practices that don't shade out birds, and that's a really great thing. So someone on tonight's presentation will get that. And then we also have a roll of window tape for bird strike avoidance. And this was from our friends at Feather Friendly who sponsored us for Bird Friendly Fall and for our membership month. And so one of you will be getting that. It's tape that you can put into your window that's visible to birds so that they don't hit the window and then croak. So that's a great thing. So keep your eyes and ears out for an email saying that you might have won. And congratulations to those who do. I want to thank you again for joining us, and I will now turn it over to Stefan Martin, who is our conservation manager for Connecticut Audubon Society, and he'll be joined by Jed Duguid from Oliver Nurseries, and they've got a great presentation for you. Looking forward to hearing all about it. Stefan, you ready to go?
I'm ready. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. Well, just a little quick history of the Connecticut Audubon Society. I'm sure most of you are well aware of this, but in case not, our mission here is to protect Connecticut's birds, other wildlife, and their habitats through conservation, education, and advocacy. And we educate over 100,000 people annually, manage 22 sanctuaries that cover over 3,400 acres. In addition to that, we work with folks like Jed Duguid over at Oliver Nurseries to help promote our mission. And he does a fantastic job over there of being bird friendly and keeping all of this in mind and trying to help Connecticut's wildlife as well. So I'm thrilled to have him here with us tonight.
Thank you, Stefan.
Our presentation is talking about what you can do at home, especially this fall. Fall is a great time to plant, and Jed will touch a little bit more on that. But you want to bring conservation home, where to start and how to do it, planting for birds and other wildlife here.
Yeah. I don't know if you want me to talk now about
Yeah.
planting in the fall, but fall is one of the best times to plant. Typically, we're getting good moisture in the fall. Before the other day, we've been a little lacking here, but fall's a great time to plant. The roots are going to keep growing well into winter once the soil temperature drops below I want to say 38 degrees, which will be a while before we get there. So it's almost like a head start on spring. Um, but, when you're going to plant, I always need to find out as much about the conditions of the site as I can. When I start talking with a customer, is the area sunny? Is it shady? Is it wet? Is it dry? Is there a lot of deer pressure where you are? How exposed is it? Is there a lot of wind? Is there salt spray? Are you on the coast? Are you inland? Is it a wooded slope? I mean, these kinds of things, they really dictate what kind of plants you can grow. You don't always necessarily get to choose exactly what plant you want. Sometimes you have to decide, well, what will work here? What do I like best? Um, and then we'll start going into things. What's the purpose of the plant? Are you looking for a specimen tree? Um, are you trying to improve the curb appeal of your house? Are you looking to screen a neighbor or plant a hedge? Is it a formal garden? Is it a very informal pollinator garden? You want to replace invasive plants with beautiful natives? These are the kinds of things that we try to figure out.
And Jed mentioned that get to know the site. Some of the plants that are already currently growing in that area might be a good indicator of what you can grow. So you might not have to stand out there all day long looking at the sun and counting the minutes of how much sun that you're getting, or probing the ground to see how much water is there. If you have a lot of ferns, chances are it's not going to be 100% sun. That might lead you a little more into the shade selection. So types of companion plants that are growing side by side as well, something to consider. And if you don't know what's growing there and maybe don't want to call Jed out for a site visit, which you can, he does do that as well. You can use some of these AI companions here, like iNaturalist or Seek. Picture this, Google Lens. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with all of these. I personally really enjoy iNaturalists because not only is it peer reviewed, meaning that I can take a photo of something, I can get a recommendation on what that may be. It might just get me down to a um, a genus or a family level. But then I can submit that, and then somebody else, Jed or Melissa or Joyce or Miley or somebody else, can look at my observation, say, actually, no, it's this plant, or it's this mushroom, or it's this bird, or it's this reptile, or amphibian, and they can suggest an edit to what I had identified it as. And then that helps make a map of some of these species in the area, as well as helps feed the AI engine into making a more accurate identification next time. So iNaturalist, I really like. It's basically like eBird. If folks have heard of eBird, it's like that, but for everything.
And as scary as it is, it does continue to learn, and it's already pretty darn accurate.
Learning all the time. I helped it learn today a number of times.
Good.
When talking about creating bird-friendly or wildlife-friendly habitats, It's a three-legged stool, really, just as it is with us. We need a couple of these major components here to survive. Food, water, cover, or shelter. It's pretty basic when you break it down to this, and we're going to kind of go through all of those to help folks in a step-by-step process here. First, we'll talk about some food for wildlife, and the plants first for the food for the insects. If you plant for the insects, you're planting for the birds as well. There's plenty of plants out there that are also going to provide fruits and berries for wildlife, as well as nuts or seeds. But definitely consider host plants. And if you don't know what a host plant is, the best example I can give you is everyone out there knows what kind of plants that the monarch caterpillar feeds on. It's going to be milkweed. So it's anything that's going to be an Asclepias. A lot of these insects are specialty insects. Some are generalists, but a lot of them need a certain genus or group of plants in order to fulfill their life cycle. In fact, it's pretty amazing that these keystone plants, out of all of the plants in North America, only 14% of those plants are going to support 90% of the Lepidoptera. So that's going to be moths and butterflies. That's pretty incredible to think about. Without these plants, these insects are unable to fulfill their life cycles. And this is just talking butterflies and moths, not to mention all of the other insects like beetles that are specialty that need certain plants as well. A list of the keystone plants that we'll be going through. We're going to talk a little bit about the oaks, willow, cherries, not too much on the pines or poplar, but these are some amazing keystone plants that not only hold amazing value for wildlife, but we'll talk a little bit about why they're so valuable to us as well in our own backyards. And to put things into perspective, why it's important to plant these things. A single pair of chickadees need to catch about 7,500 caterpillars to rear one clutch. I'll let everyone take that in for a second. It's pretty daunting to think about that. That means adult chickadees need to find 500 caterpillars per day on average. So that's 72 caterpillars per chick per day. Out of all of the bird species on planet Earth, over 50% of them are going to rely on insects. We'll talk about now some of our favorite plants and why they're favorite to our own personal backyards and the environment, but also why they're important to wildlife. So oaks, the mighty oak. We're going to talk about the white oak complex. So white oaks, black oaks, those are going to be some of the better host plants that provide more food for the Lepidoptera insects, moths, but also they're a vital food source for things like blue jays and white-tailed deer, wild turkeys, black bear, opossum, you name it, they're going to be feeding on the nut. And I know Jed has a couple favorite oaks as well.
I do. Chestnut oak is one of my favorites, which is Quercus montana. It's got deep furrowed bark, does extremely well in dry sites, kind of think like an upland soil, and just big leaf, great acorns, swamp white oak, Quercus bicolor, two colors. It's got a very dark green or a sort of a shimmery green top and a very silvery underside to the leaf. Those do well in lowland sites. Could take it swampy and wet. Doesn't require it, but it can tolerate that. So I mean, there's oaks for most situations, provided you've got the sky above to plant them. It's not something that you're going to put right in the foundation planting of your house, but even a small yard can support a big white oak.
They're also going to provide great shade for the backyard as well. Some of the species that will utilize the oaks as host plants, as the name suggests, things like oak hairstreak. A lot of these butterfly species will be named after their host plant, like the oak hairstreak. White M hairstreak, Horace's dusky wing, red banded hairstreak, red spotted purple, Cecropia moth. The list goes on. It supports more Lepidoptera than any other plant in the ecoregion 8, which is going to be the temperate eastern forests. Things that you wouldn't necessarily even expect that are going to be feeding on oaks, like this blue jay in migration. Now is a perfect time to look up in the sky if you hear some blue jays and they're going to be coming through. And 9 times out of 10, if it's a good year for acorns, you're going to be seeing these blue jays coming through. They're going to have a full crop of acorns and one in the bill for the road there. Black bears, they're going to be climbing oaks and trying to feed on those acorns and shaking those acorns to the ground to pick up later. Cherries, nice showy plant. There's a lot of different species of cherry, American plum, black cherry, choke cherry, beach plums. They host more than 300 species of caterpillars. So again, that's going to be moths and butterflies. The flowers are a phenomenal nectar source for adult insects and pollinators. And then the fruit is going to be a wonderful, valuable fall food source for birds and other wildlife. Do you have a couple favorite prunus or cherries, Jed?
I do. Prunus virginiana, which is the choke cherry, or also called bitterberry, is a great one. It's got nice white bottle brush flowers. There's actually a cultivar that has become more popular in my trade over the last few years called Canada Red. It first leaves out green, but then by mid-May, around the same time it's coming into bloom, just the leaves turn almost like a deep, almost black red. Really nice contrast with the blooms that are coming at that point. Fruit that ripen in August, they're about the size of a little bigger than a pea, which I imagine feed the smaller the fruit, the wider variety of birds that the fruit's going to feed. I also love Prunus maritima, or maritima, however you want to say it, which is the beach plum. That is excellent tolerance to a wide variety of sites, including salt spray. They, as the name suggests, it'll grow right on the beach. So also a good sandy soil like that. Think about how well drained that soil is. Even if you're not planting it on the beach, it does want to be in a good, well drained spot. Don't plant a beach plum in a swampy spot. But good good sunny spot. They're going to be real happy. Give you a lot of beautiful flowers, like we've got up on the screen there. And then it gets a large, almost grape-sized fruit, which I love. I'll scare the birds away so I can go eat them myself. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that in an Audubon thing, but I chase them away so I can eat them.
Just means you got to plant a couple.
That's right.
Yeah, as Jed said, I mean, the name suggests it's going to be grown naturally along the coast, and it does. Right along in the dunes, along the coast of Connecticut, it's growing quite well, and you can put it right in your backyard. Just make sure you have well-drained soil. It's pretty tolerant of a couple different conditions, but make sure it doesn't stay wet. Yeah, gorgeous droop that it has. You can make jellies and jams out of it. So not only is it of interest and value to our wildlife, but also for yourself in your own backyard. We have the birches coming next. Couple of my favorite birches. I really like river birch and sweet or black birch. If you ever heard of birch beer, this is where it comes from. River birch is photoed here with that beautiful bark, exfoliated and has that yellowish, creamy color to it. It's going to host more than 200 different species of caterpillar, and the catkins are going to be a great food source for winter finches coming down, like pine siskins or common redpolls throughout the late fall and into the winter. The finch forecast suggests this year that we're going to be expecting some pine siskins and common redpolls to come down. So this is, if you're buying thistle feed, this is a great plant to plant in the backyard. So you don't maybe have to buy so much thistle. They're going to feed on this as well. Do you sell a lot of birches, or what's the most common birch that you guys sell over at Oliver's?
The most common birch we sell is the river birch. It's very popular, again, because it's tolerant of a lot of different soil types. They grow in a lot of sun. They're fairly shade tolerant. They're quick growing. People, and the river birch in particular, get pretty large. People often will make the mistake of putting that right in their foundation planting, a little too close. It can work, but you want to be off of the house a little bit. But river birches are great. The sweet birch or black birch is another one, the Betula lenta. It's a little tougher to come by in the trade, but I am starting to see more and more of my growers uh, grow them as more and more people are demanding native plants. So that's great. You know, what you guys ask for, we ask our growers for, and it's driving what's becoming more and more available. So, but let's see. Um, yeah, with the Betula lenta, with the black birch, um, it doesn't want too compacted of a soil, but they're tolerant otherwise of most soil types.
Yeah, that's going to be one of our probably the most common birch that we have in our woodlands around here. Every once in a while, I'll crack a branch and give it a nice sniff, and maybe have a twig in my mouth while walking through the woods. Um, there is a dwarf river birch variety I know, which I think is
Well,
a little easier to grow, harder to come by, but great specimen plant if you're looking for that
called,
beautiful
called
uh,
Little King.
little
Uh,
king. There you go.
yep, it's a good one. And I noticed someone, a comment pop up a second ago saying river birches aren't native, perhaps technically not to Connecticut. And they mentioned gray birches, which is another wonderful birch that we carry. We carry the white spire, which has a nice white bark. So a lot of people are coming to us because the more seasons of interest they can get out of a plant, the better. So white spire gray birch is a great option as well.
Just give everyone an idea of what these catkins look like, um, and then what they're going to be feeding. This is a cute little common red pole, so keep an eye out on your birches this winter for these little small winter finches coming through. I know for a fact this next plant, and we're trying to incorporate some trees, some shrubs, some forbs, a whole multitude of different sizes for folks. This one I know for sure is one of Jed's favorites. He was talking about scaring the birds away for the beach plum.
I'm going to be talking about blueberries. Yeah, the Vaccinium, the blueberry group, which includes high bush blueberry, low bush blueberry, cranberries, there's cowberries, a lot of different species in Vaccinium that are just going to be wonderful attractors for birds and I'm sure other um, specializer insects, pollinators. But high bush blueberry, Vaccinium corymbosum, absolutely a great four-season a plant. Should be in everyone's yard. They've got beautiful flowers in the spring, nice little ericaceous white flowers, which of course are going to turn into these beautiful, delicious blueberries midsummer. Fall, they get a red fall color that rivals any burning bush or uh, any desired invasive plant. And then in the winter, the high bush blueberry, it's got beautiful pinkish red stems, and it's already got next spring's flower buds set on there. Just a spectacular, spectacular true four-season of interest plant.
Jed mentioned that this fall color is going to rival any burning bush that you'll see out there. This is a great native alternative to winged euonymus or burning bush, a plant that was very common in the plant trade. And I think this past year, was that one of the ones that made it to the ban list? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, it did. Oliver's, we stopped selling it 27 or 26 years ago, somewhere around there.
I'll open up a can of worms here. The reason why some of these plants, there's a banned list of invasives, and then there's a not banned list of invasives, and it's all on one list. There's the banned and the not banned, or the ones that you're still able to sell. For some reason, winged euonymus, even though it covers thousands of acres and outcompetes our native understory, it was still allowed to be sold because a lot of these growers and nurseries said, you know, this is my bread and butter. If you get rid of the winged euonymus, I'm going to go hungry. You know, what else am I going to sell? And Jed is living proof that that's just not true. There's plenty of other alternatives, including these native plants.
Yeah. We stopped selling it and we never looked back.
And you did okay with not carrying it anymore.
We've done all right. Yeah.
You could pick up a high bush blueberry. Here's another one of my favorites, actually. Um, I'll let Jed talk a little bit about the conditions, but man, I love this plant. It's so great for wildlife. Now, it might not necessarily be a host plant for butterflies. It is a host plant for a couple of different moth species. But those little fruits that it has, they're so tiny that they can be enjoyed by a whole bunch of different bird species, including things like black-capped chickadees. And if you know black-capped chickadees, they're one of our smaller songbirds. So there's not a whole ton of berries that they're able to eat whole. They need to, you know, if it was a beach plum, for instance, they might eat, but they'll wait for it to become a little overripe, and then they'll kind of peck at it and try to tear little bits of it off. This plant, the birds are able to eat the berry complete. Um, We've seen things like brown thrasher, which is a state-listed species, feeding on this plant. Tree swallows, this is an incredibly valuable plant for tree swallows in fall migration coming through. Cedar waxwings and bluebirds throughout the fall and into the summer, or excuse me, into the winter. The yellow-rumped warbler, which we have in the United States two different subspecies. We have the myrtle warbler in the east, and then we have the Audubon's warbler in the west. And our myrtle warbler, well, a synonym for bayberry is going to be wax myrtle. So they are actually named after this plant because they enjoy the plant so much. And you'll oftentimes see this myrtle warbler or yellow-rumped warbler feeding on these berries. And I'll give you a quick little before I let Jed talk about these just growing conditions of it. I promise I'll let you talk in 1 second. We'll show this little video, hopefully it plays, of tree swallows in migration eating the berries. Actually, there's a whole bunch of bank swallows mixed in here too as well. Some of these shrubs were, look at all those birds. These guys are migrating thousands of miles. They need to feed along the way. We think of tree swallows being predominantly aerial insectivores. Well, they're also going to eat from the bayberry as well. There were so many birds here that there was even birds on the ground picking up the berries that had fallen. So pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I'll leave on that. Sorry. So some of the growing conditions of bayberry it's a pretty tolerant plant, is it not?
It's extremely adaptable. It grows almost anywhere from a parking lot. I mean, that one in this picture looks like it's practically growing in the parking lot. But they'll take it wet, they take it dry, they take it sunny, they take it shady. One interesting thing to know about the bayberry, it's a dioecious plant, meaning that there are separate male plants and female plants. And of course, it's the female plants that's going to give you the berries. Now, in the nurseries, they frequently are not sexed. So if you're ever shopping for bayberry at a nursery and you want to try to figure out if it's a female plant or a male plant, a lot of times there's still signs on the plant. You might still see berries on it. You see a berry, you know it's a female plant. If it's totally devoid of berries, there's a pretty good chance it's a male. But I mean, I would definitely say get three or four or five, or some people like odd numbers, so three or five. You know, pretty good chance that there's going to be a male amongst them, and so that just increases your odds that you're going to get some good berries for the birds.
And in my experience with bayberry, it can be shaped. So if you started off young enough, you can actually hedge it to an extent. So it's actually a decent alternative to things like privet. But you gotta make sure you start it off early, start training it in a certain growth pattern. But it can tolerate some heavy pruning like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point, Stefan. And I think they're wonderful when they go natural, but in the landscape, you know, if it's in your foundation or in your front yard, you might want it to look a little tighter, a little fuller, a little more manicured. There's
Yeah,
nothing.
I'm with you. I'll take a nice mature bayberry all day long.
Yeah.
One of our next keystone plants are going to be the willows, things like pussy willow or black willow. You can see the bee there with those pollen sacs in that photo. They host more than 200 species of butterfly and moth, and support more than a dozen specialist bees. And one of the cool things about this plant is it has some dormant interest, or I guess technically it wouldn't be dormant. When other plants are dormant, the things that we're not seeing leafing out yet or flowering yet, this plant looks like this. And if you are ever in the grocery line around Easter time and you see a bundle of these branches next to the counter, maybe an impulse buy that you can use to help decorate some Easter containers or around the pansies. You can do that at home, and you can plant this plant and then cut some branches off and use those to elaborate a centerpiece. And then if you keep it in water, they're really easy to propagate. So if you have a spot in the lawn that maybe you didn't want to spend a little more money to pick up a new shrub, you can just stick these branches once they've rooted a little bit into a wetter spot into the area of the back of lawn or property, and they'll root just fine, and you'll have a new, totally new plant. And I've done that a lot, and it's a cheap way of getting your money's worth.
Trying to cut me out, Stefan.
Hey, sometimes we got to make sure that the consumer doesn't go broke. Saddleback caterpillar. Look at this thing. I was monitoring a plot that we had planted a number of years ago with some black willow and pussy willow, and making sure that they were watered, and brushed my arm up against something that, didn't quite feel all that great. I looked back and I said, "Ow!" Looked back and I saw this plant was absolutely loaded with these guys. Really cool looking caterpillar. Definitely not a saddle that you want to sit on, as Jed would say. But really cool species of moth there that utilizes the willow as a host plant. Same thing with the Cecropia moth here. Just an absolutely stunning silk moth that we have in Connecticut that uses willows as a host plant as well. We're talking some fall interest on this next plant. This is a great genus of plant here. There's a lot of different viburnums. Some wonderful, some not so wonderful. There's a good handful of viburnums, non-native viburnums that have escaped cultivation and are popping up in the landscape. But maybe before planting something non-native, you can consider some of these native species like arrowwood viburnum or blackhaw viburnum, cranberry viburnum. Another great host plant for butterflies, spring azure, and things like the clearwing moths, like snowberry clearwing. A lot of folks call those the hummingbird moths or hummingbird clearwing, the ones that move really fast in the garden and have that long uh, uh, probe that goes into these tubular flowers. And this genus is going to be a host plant for those. And then additionally, the flower is going to provide a lot of wonderful food for the adult pollinators, and the fruit is an excellent food source for wildlife in late summer and into fall. Did I miss any species that you'd recommend?
Two of my favorites that you didn't recommend are Viburnum acerifolium or the maple leaf viburnum. Great for a shadier spot in the yard. Not too aggressive growing. A lot of viburnums can get pretty big, 12, 13, 15 feet. Viburnum acerifolium is going to stay quite a bit lower, and it's a lot slower. And then Viburnum nudum, uh, Winterthur, Brandywine are two cultivars that are popular in the trade. I also carry just the straight species. And with a lot of these viburnums, I'd recommend again having multiple. These aren't dioecious plants, but you do get a better fruit set when you have multiple plants around. Um, so, uh, Viburnum nudum, though, beautiful show of almost pink and blue berries as they're ripening, and leathery burgundy leaves in the winter or fall rather, heading into winter. Just great plants. But all of those arrowwood, Viburnum dentatum, incredible fall color, nice blue berries, cranberry viburnum, like it sounds like. It's got red berries, great, uh, great fall color on that. I've planted all of these in my yard in the last couple of years.
Maple leaf viburnum, from my understanding, that would have been one of the most common understory shrubs prior to the explosion and proliferation of the white-tailed deer around the area. Arrowwood viburnum, here's a good photo to show kind of the growth habit and that beautiful array of flowers in the spring that those adult pollinators, butterflies, bees, and moths are going to be using. And then that gorgeous fall interest as well with that arrowwood viburnum.
Yeah, you can't beat that. Again, to me, that rivals burning bush, for sure.
Definitely, yeah, hands down. And plus, you have more interest with this plant.
Yeah,
Burning bush gives you one season interest. That's it. This will give you multi-season.
right. Double file viburnum, which is a popular one in the trade. That's one of the ones I'm starting to see pop up more and more. I think it's probably on my short list for soon to be axed plants. It's not banned in Connecticut, but I think it's headed in that direction.
Yeah, do you there's a good handful of those where you've noticed or we've had conversation before of things popping up maybe on some of the times that we've spent out in the forest. And do you make those considerations then? So even if it's not on the ban list or even on the invasive list, if you see it popping up somewhere and escaping cultivation pretty heavily or at least locally, is that something that you consider to stop selling a certain plant?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things I have to try to take into consideration first. Is it in an area near a whole bunch of other ones, where the seed pressure maybe is high right there and not in other places? So if I see it as I'm driving around in places where I know it wouldn't have been planted uh, in multiple occasions, it definitely it starts to cause a little concern for me.
Raises the red flags.
Yeah.
So dogwoods, this is a group of trees and shrubs. So we'll touch on a couple shrubs, but One tree for sure, Cornish Florida, one of my absolute favorite plants, and I'm sure a lot of folks on here, it's one of their favorite plants. The flowers. So again, we're talking multi-season interest and multi-use of wildlife. The flowers are a great nectar source for adult pollinators. And again, going to be a host plant for things like spring azure butterfly, which was that butterfly that I quickly passed by before on the viburnums to get to that beautiful fall foliage. And then the fruit is an excellent food source for wildlife into the fall. There's been a couple problems with Cornish Florida, from my understanding, and a couple of the other dogwoods. But it sounds like is it anthracnose was a fungus that was starting to hit the flowering dogwood pretty hard there for a little while.
Yes, and there's a lot of selected cultivars that have excellent anthracnose resistance. There's the Appalachian series, the Cherokee series. So a lot of good long-lived native flowering dogwoods. The other thing I would say, they got a bad rap for a long time. People would let their lawn grow right up to the trunk, and then their lawn service or they themselves, every time they would be passing with the mower or the weed whacker, they would just nick the bottom of that trunk, eventually girdling the tree and killing it. So you don't have to give it a big bed around it, but make a small, if it's in your lawn, make a small little bed around it. Uh, be a good spot to put in a couple of perennials at its base. But if you don't, throw a little mulch down. Don't mulch it too high, and your dogwood will last a lot longer. But the native flowering dogwood, great small scale tree, 15, 20 feet. Works in any yard. No one has a yard where you can't plant a Cornus Florida. And then Cornus alba, or Cornus sericea, the red stemmed and yellow stemmed dogwoods or red osier dogwoods. They're incredibly useful plants for winter interest. Um, you can use them in a lot of spots in the landscape, in a hedgerow. Um, Wet spots actually take it remarkably dry. Uh, they're great plants as well. You can prune them. If you let them go, they'll go about 10 to 12 feet. But if you prune them hard, the youngest branches have the most color. So cut them back every couple of years and let it get some good vigorous growth. You'll have a lot more of that bright red that you see on the screen right now.
These the silky dogwood and red osier dogwood, great clonal plants. They're going to want to create, again, choosing the plant for the area. If you have a spot where you can just let this plant do its thing and spread out, it's going to spread through underground runners. So if you wanted to fill up a space in the yard, this is definitely a good plant for that. And again,
Yeah.
talking about the pussy willow and the branches, same thing with the red osier dogwood. If you grow this in the backyard, you cut some stems. It looks wonderful in arrangements or those holiday container gardens at the front door, and also really easy to propagate through stem cutting.
Yep.
So hollies. Um, I'll let you talk a little bit about hollies.
Another one of my favorites, and another dioecious plant. This is one where there are separate males and females. Um, and again, you only need one male, and he'll pollinate a good number of females. So go strong on the females. That's what's going to produce the fruit to provide for the songbirds anyway. But American holly, Ilex opaca, great understory, broad-leaved evergreen. It's shade tolerant. The deer don't eat it. One of the best deer-proof plants there is for screening options. Um, they actually can get fairly tall if they have space and time. Eventually they can get 20, 25 feet. But they're very easy to maintain, anywhere from 6 to 12, or in between there and 20. Um, they'll take it wet. They take it pretty dry, though you want to keep them well watered the first couple of years to establish. Always important. Ilex verticillatas, the winterberry, what's on the screen right now. Great wetland plant. That's one you'll start seeing in grocery stores. Grow a few in your backyard. Cut the stems. Put them in your pots by your door. Save a few dollars at the florist or at the grocery store. And the birds, they don't care if they're in your yard or in the pots by your front door. They're still going to see the berries. They'll come take them out of the pots, even if they're clipped. It doesn't matter. Ilex glabra, which is inkberry, is a great plant. Kind of looks like boxwood, if people don't know Ilex glabra. In fact, some of the more modern cultivars, Gembox, Strongbox, they're even naming them to try to almost trick people into thinking, oh, it's like a boxwood. And it is like a boxwood. It's a small, round, broad-leaved evergreen. They get a little black fruit. There's not a lot of males available in the trade, but other species of holly do seem to pollinate them. So, even if you have a Japanese holly in the yard, or a male Ilex opaca, or a blue holly, which is a hybrid, I'm not sure exactly which one, but I know some of those are pollinating the glabras. So even if you're buying a female clone, there's a good chance you're going to get fruit on it. And there doesn't even necessarily need to be one in your yard. It could be in your neighbor's yard. And there's a good chance you're still going to get fruit on it. But the inkberries, great in a formal garden, great in your foundation planting. It's a good landscape work plant.
It can really take some pruning. So as Jed said, a great alternative to the boxwoods. You can shape it, you can make it round. So great plant. Here's one of my favorites. And hopefully everyone is really enjoying this, because I'm looking at the clock and I'm running a little long. So hopefully not everyone has to jump off immediately at 8 o'clock. So you'll get your money's worth here. Northern spicebush. This is one of my favorites. Really important host plant for things like the tiger swallowtail, or as the name suggests, spicebush swallowtail. Promethea moth, which is the one that we showed earlier. The flowers are real early on this plant. So as you can see in the photo, it has these really delicate yellow splay of flowers. Early spring, it's one of the first flowering plants that you'll see in the woods. I know that when I start to see spicebush, that I'll begin to start seeing some of the early warblers starting to come in. And that really gets me excited for the spring birding season. Beautiful yellow fall foliage. The fruit is excellent for wildlife in the fall. And here's a little photo of our spicebush swallowtail caterpillar. Great bird poop mimic. And then has these wonderful false eye spots as it starts to get a little bit larger into its later instars. And then Cecropia, Promethea, excuse me, was earlier. This is Cecropia moth. And beautiful fall color on this plant. I personally really like that dappled yellow color to the spicebush. And if you can notice it right now, if you go for a walk at one of our sanctuaries, it generally likes along the edges of wetlands, though it is fairly tolerant of a bunch of different types of conditions, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah, it's another one that'll take it wet, it'll take it dry. And to speak of that fall color popping right now, if you have a dark evergreen behind it, whether it's an American holly, or Thuya occidentalis, or arborvitae, I have some of both of those in my yard, both juxtaposed by spicebush, and I mean the spicebush is just popping right now next to him.
Yeah, very cool plant. I love spicebush.
Yep.
Top 5 for sure. All right, so we went through some trees, we went through some shrubs. Now we'll talk we'll mention a couple different perennials here. Um, some of my favorites personally, and things that are going to be popping right now. Late season interests. There's so many different types of goldenrods. A couple of the great ones are going to be stiff leaf goldenrod, Atlantic goldenrod. One of my personal favorites that I didn't list here is going to be grass leafed goldenrod. Great nectar source for pollinators. Really important late season food plant for things like monarch that are coming through in their fall migration, their southbound migration, trying to get all the way down to Mexico, especially along the coast. Seaside goldenrod is a wonderful plant if you have the right conditions for it. It's a host plant for more than 100 different caterpillar species, supports more than 40 specialist bee species, and many are going to be clonal, which will form dense stands. So again, talking about the right plant for the right place. If you have an area in the yard where you can kind of just let it go crazy, great plant for that. There are some species that play a little bit better in the formal garden, like blue stem, goldenrod or gray goldenrod. Those are a couple ones that I've seen personally that will stay kind of well kept and mounded and don't, venture too far from where they were planted, and they kind of play well with others. The seed is also a great food source for migratory birds. I've seen everything from orange crown warblers in late fall to Tennessee warblers. I've even seen Cape May warblers actually probably picking the little insects out of the bases of the leaves of goldenrod. But one of the things people might be thinking in their head is, I don't want to plant goldenrod. I have really bad allergies. Well, it's not an allergen. Goldenrod gets a really bad rap. People think that it's ragweed. Ragweed is what's going to be making you sneeze. Goldenrod is just fine. So folks, keep that in mind. It's not going to do any damage to you guys. So a really great plant to incorporate, especially if you're doing a meadow, or if you want to just kind of kill some of your lawn and plant a really hardy plant that's going to be able to take over a section of lawn. Goldenrod is going to be a great plant for that. And when it's in full flower, if you're walking around the edges of fields or in the garden, stop and listen. You'll hear so many bees that are pollinating this plant. You're going to look closer, you're going to see everything from the tiniest little flies that are pollinating this to the largest of butterflies like the tiger swallowtail. Really cool plant. Any any addition to that one?
Well, just, with some of these perennials, if you're doing a good pollinator patch like that of perennials, something like goldenrod, give it some space. I know sometimes you want to get your plants close together, but with the goldenrod, give it some space. There's a saying we go by: the first year it sleeps, second year it creeps, the third year it leaps. It goes with a lot of plants, but goldenrod is especially one of them, where by that third year, you've got such a big patch of it. It's taken up a lot of room. Don't buy more than you need to.
Good advice. Definitely one that you want to give it space.
Yeah.
Another awesome selection are going to be asters, things like bluewood aster or smooth aster. Again, a wonderful host plant, more than 100 different caterpillar species, 30 specialist bee species. Seeds are going to be eaten by wildlife in the winter. It's going to be a host plant to things like the pearl crescent butterfly, which is this tiny little orange butterfly. Kind of has a nice color scheme for October, even though they're not going to be flying too much right now. But really small, beautiful butterfly. But if you might just see it fly by and think it's a day flying moth, unless you really get to observe it pollinating something. It's a beautiful little butterfly. Also things like fritillaries as well, I believe are going to be using some of the asters. I think this is probably the New England aster. Um, Great plant to incorporate into the garden. This one is still flowering right now. We have a pollinator garden here at our Larson Sanctuary. Still a ton of flowers on the aster there. Really important again for these late monarchs that are coming through. Maybe the bulk of them are going to be heading south or further south than us right now. But incorporating some asters into the garden are definitely going to be a lifeline for these late monarchs as well. Do you have a favorite aster or two?
I love wood aster. I love seeing asters in a shady spot. I love New England aster, you know.
Actually, good point. So wood asters, as you might think, they grow in the woods, so they'll take a good bit of shade. They only need a little bit of sun. I think the more sun that they have and that dappled understory, probably the more prolific they're going to be. But they'll really take a good dense shade.
Yep.
So we gave you the shrubs, we gave you the trees, we gave you some of the perennials. We'll talk about, I think, just one grass. This is my favorite grass, little blue stem. It's going to be a host to a lot of these little grass skippers that are called things like the swarthy skipper, which is an unusual butterfly for the state of Connecticut, a little more common further south than us. The southern Connecticut is as far as the species has ventured so far in its northern portion of its range. It's great to incorporate into the landscape for a good pop of difference of texture. It really helps break up some of the things in the garden a little bit, so you don't get too, you have that little depth of field with the blue stem. It doesn't get overly tall. There is something called big blue stem, which doesn't look anything like this in my opinion. But the little blue stem, probably about knee height, a little bit bigger, maybe 2 feet or so, maybe a smidge bigger than that, tends to be fairly mounded and pretty resilient in that form. It does occasionally flop if it doesn't have the right conditions, if it doesn't maybe have enough sun. And so it tends to do a little better in full sun. But a beautiful, beautiful plant, and really helps to break up those textures in the garden or the landscape, and really easy to grow. It's one of these pioneer plants. If you see an abandoned parking lot, or I know in Fairfield, if folks are in Fairfield, there's a abandoned lot across from the Home Depot in Fairfield. It's like that's the grass that's growing out of the asphalt. There is going to be a little blue stem. So it's a really resilient plant.
Yeah. Nothing adds more drama to landscapes than grasses. I mean, little blue stem is a little bit stiff, but there are a lot of other good native grasses, which just even the slightest little bit of breeze, they move around, and just got that nice fine texture. And all grasses for all different sizes, whatever you're looking for, we can help find something to fit it what it is you're looking for.
And the little blue stem, folks know that there's interest in that plant. So there's a lot of cool cultivars of it as well. Here's a photo of the swirly skipper, very inconspicuous, maybe not the showiest butterfly, certainly not the largest butterfly. It's about the size of your thumbnail,
They're
but cute
fast little
little
buggers, aren't they?
Oh, they're incredibly fast. And then fall interests. I mean, this is a really unique grass because most of the time we think grasses, we think those large seed heads or plumes. This kind of has those seeds all throughout those single individual blades, and it really kind of adds this dramatic feel in the fall, especially into the winter, even when you have the winds blowing, and because you've left all your plants long for the winter. We'll get into that in a second. But it's a really great plant. I love that one. So we spent some time on food. We'll go over water briefly here. I know we're running out of time, so I thank everybody for sticking around with us. Water, as it is to us, incredibly crucial for birds and other wildlife for them to survive, especially in the winter. Birds and wildlife not only drink the water, but they also use it to bathe. Helps maybe get rid of some of the mites that are on them. Running water is always the best. Not only will it help attract wildlife by mimicking the natural sounds that they might hear from a stream, but it also helps to prevent algae buildup and stays fresh a bit longer. And then with that moving water, it helps prevent mosquitoes as well. couple different sources of water, natural water, obviously ponds, lakes, rivers, streams, brooks, and even a puddle. So things like that puddle in the parking lot. You might notice today after a good rain that you might have some goldfinch or something coming down and bathing in that puddle. So that's still a natural water source as well. Supplemental water if you don't have water in the area aside from a puddle maybe. You can start to incorporate some man-made water features like ponds or bird baths even, or drip buckets. I won't go into the drip buckets or bird baths too much, but we'll talk a little bit about these man-made ponds here and supplemental water. And some of the examples that we have at our different sanctuaries that you can come and enjoy, like our frog pond over at our Larson Sanctuary. We have this beautiful replicated waterfall with these tiers, flat stones in there. It's not too fast of a current, so that birds are able to use those flat spaces to bathe in. Great for photography as well, especially if you've been to Milford Point. You know of the water fountain there. It's been dubbed the Magic Fountain. We've seen more than 70 species of birds utilizing this water fountain. Everything from red-tailed hawk to yellow-crowned or black-crowned night heron, Cooper's hawk to Cape May warbler, clay-colored sparrow, pine, hundreds of pine siskins, cedar waxwings. People come from hours of Massachusetts. They come down to sit at this water fountain in migration to get some photographs of all these birds coming down. And it's not terribly hard to build either. If you have a shovel and a pond liner and some stones and a circulating pump, you can do it at home. I built this one with a friend of mine, and so thrilled that I did. It has brought so many people and so much wildlife joy, and that really valuable, crucial portion of that three-legged survival stool as well.
I heard there was a black widow spider there once, Stefan.
It was. So it looks a little clear around that pond right now. So we did incorporate, we got rid of some invasive plants, like some shrub honeysuckles and some mugwort, and we've replaced it with some things like bayberry and winterberry and black haw viburnum and red cedar. So all these great native plants. And I dug the holes myself and unwrapped all the burlap from all the plants and was unwrapping one of the bayberry back in 2019, the fall of 2019, and happened to notice this dark spider underneath one of the folds of burlap, and I said, "Oh golly, that looks like a black widow," and went and got a little specimen container and caught it and looked underneath and saw that beautiful red hourglass, and sure enough, it was a female southern black widow, and these plants came up. We do have black widows native to Connecticut, southern black widow, but these plants came up from a grower who does a phenomenal job with bayberry down in New Jersey. Just so happened to catch a ride.
Yep.
I'll say 95% of those plants also came from Jed. And if he doesn't have it at the shop, he'll help you procure it, like those bayberries. Stratford Point water feature. Back when the property was a little younger. Or Birdcraft Waterfall. Lots of folks don't even know about the Birdcraft Waterfall. It's behind it kind of tucked away behind the museum or next to the museum in the main building there, the old caretaker's cottage. Um, this is, believe it or not, a man-made water feature, and this just they did such a wonderful job kind of replicating this beautiful backwoods Vermont natural landscape. And that water is not deep at all. You don't even have to have standing water, just the moving water. You could have pondless water features, but that moving water, that audio cue to the birds and other wildlife is invaluable.
Are those lilies in pots submerged or are they planted?
Um, those are planted. Yeah, those are planted. They may be in pots planted, but
No,
as far as I know,
they're planted. They're
yeah,
just they're on their own. They're doing great.
Good.
Lots of frogs in there.
Nice.
every puddle has a green frog. So cover or shelter. This is very, very important. A lot of people really don't consider this as one of the main legs of that stool of survival. Um, a lot of our pollinators need brush or long stems to survive during the winter. Some of them are overwintering as eggs. Some of them are overwintering as larvae or pupa. Some are overwintering as adults. Um, Brush piles. Doesn't not necessarily have to be as wild as this one. You can make it look a little bit neater if this isn't your style. But if you have an area in the backyard that you don't mind tossing your cuttings or your brush, keep everything on your property if you can, unless it's an invasive and you're trying to remove it. You know, you might want to bag those propagules, those rhizome or roots or seed heads, and then throw those away. But try to keep everything you can on the property, especially if you have a good section in the back that you can do so. Invaluable for the insects to fulfill their life cycle. If you don't give them the opportunity to do this, then we won't have the next generation of pollinators or insects, which ultimately, if we didn't have insects, we would have no food. I mean, think about it from that perspective as well. Insects are critical in our survival as well. Now is the perfect time to harp on this. Leave it long. Personally, I love this look. I love a long landscape like this. It just adds even additional interest throughout the fall and into the winter. It's just dramatic. You have, and these are some little blue stem as well, and then the red osier dogwood and pussy willow. This was taken in the spring. You could see these daffodils already starting to come up. So we left along all year. Insects are going to be overwintering in those stems as well. So not just the brush piles, not just the leaf litter, not just under the logs, but also in those stems at the bases of these grasses where it stays a little bit longer. In the leaves that you left throughout the yard. It not only will help the insects, it'll help your garden as well. It will help insulate the garden. It'll keep your roots happy. It will help break down and feed the soil with that organic matter. All of these things are necessary for a healthy garden as well.
And what's not beautiful about that right there? I mean,
I personally love that look. That's why I included that picture.
yeah,
Some folks might find it messy. I don't. I think we need to change the narrative, and we need this to be the new beauty.
right. You know, if you can't handle it, and if you do have to cut back your gardens in the fall, like Stefan said, a really small spot in the back corner of your yard go a long way in protecting some of those overwintering larvae. Um, same with your leaves, you know. Maybe you need to get them out of your lawn, but store them in your garden beds through the winter. If you don't have a spot in the back for a leaf pile.
And if you do, like Jed said, have to cut things, try to leave the first 2 feet. If you have something that's 4 feet, try to leave the first 2 feet. There's actually been some studies that show that the bulk of those insects are going to be overwintering lower in the stem than higher in the stem. So if you did want to kind of tidy things up a little bit, start off small, maybe get rid of the top, and then the next season start to leave a little bit more than the previous season. And dead wood. I always say there's nothing more living than a dead tree. Retain as much dead wood and woody material and stumps as possible in your yard. If you have an area in the yard that you don't have dead wood, maybe you want to incorporate one for a perch, where you want to see maybe a red-shouldered hawk perch on to help curb your rodent population. You can subsidize that. You can dig a hole and you can get a log or a cedar post and you can actually plant a dead tree. As silly as that might sound, it's actually really, really important for wildlife. There's nothing more living than a dead tree. It goes a long way. You're going to have a ton of different wildlife that's going to be utilizing that. Everything from the beetles, not the band, but the insect, utilizing that to things like the red-shouldered hawk, or maybe a great horned owl, or maybe a downy woodpecker is going to decide to make a cavity in that dead log that you put back there, or maybe something that you left. If it's not at risk of falling on any property or the kids or the dog, leave it in the back if you can. Because there's a lot of birds that are going to be cavity nesters that can't excavate their own cavities, like this cute little great crested flycatcher that looks like it has a giant mustache, but that is just gathering pine needles for nesting material. They are cavity nesters and they can't excavate their own holes. So they rely on those dead trees from the old red-bellied woodpecker cavity or downy woodpecker cavity to survive. So, and leave them up all year. Many birds are even going to utilize these nest boxes throughout the winter to roost in. Sometimes these birds are going to be communal roosters, like these eastern bluebirds. Look at that pile of bluebirds there. That is going to be a roosting flock of male and female bluebirds. So you can clean out your bluebird boxes or clean out your chickadee boxes, your other nest boxes in the fall. Now is a good time to do it. Try to make sure that you have a predator baffle on it, or maybe a mouse baffle, something to keep the rodents from getting up there, because mice will utilize, and that's fine too. If you want to give them a home for the winter, I encourage that. But if that's something you don't want to do, then just make sure they have a baffle on it so the mice can't get up. I know that Jed recently just cleaned his bluebird box out, and he's looking forward to having some winter roosting bluebirds himself.
On Sunday. Yeah. I had some house friends in there most of the year, and um, I'm hoping I get some bluebirds this winter. My children gave me a nest that has a little camera in it too, so I can actually go in and see what's going on inside there at any given time on my phone. And that I've already seen one or two bluebirds come in and check it out, and hoping one of them decides to spend the winter with me.
Sweet. I hope so too. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm sorry I had to breeze through the last bit there, but hopefully everybody enjoyed it. And I'm more than happy to spend a few minutes answering questions if folks don't mind sticking around for a little while longer. But if you have any questions or want to get in touch with us, here's our contact information. If you feel generous and want to add a little donation to help with our efforts as well, you can scan that QR code. But thank you.
Do
Yeah,
we
thank
want
you,
to do
guys.
any questions? Do we want to do any questions, Stefan?
Yeah, I'm totally happy to hang around. I just want to be mindful of other folks' time. Jed, if you're cool with it, and Joyce and Melissa, I'm more than happy to answer a few questions.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
terrific.
more than happy to as well.
Okay, great. Well, Jed, I have one for you. Somebody said, what plant did you mention that may be banned in the near future? It was after talking about the viburnum.
Double file viburnum specifically is what I was referring to,
Okay.
that I'm seeing, but that's viburnum. Um, oh my goodness, Viburnum plicatum, variety tomentosum, um, and yeah, I'm seeing them in a lot of places, in the woods, along the roads, um, in my backyard in Larson's here. Um, so that's one that I think it's headed there. I hate to say it because it's a great plant. It's been heavily planted because for a long time the deer weren't eating it. It had a lot of potential as a good landscape plant, but I think it might be coming in a bad way now.
All right. So talking about deer, we have a couple of questions about deer. Let's see. Deer eat our oak seedlings that we have sprouted from the many acorns that we've scattered. Do you have any advice?
Build a little cage around them, get a little snow fencing, put it around. If you don't like the look of that, deer spray. You just have to be persistent with it. I have a yard full of hostas right next to Larson's that the deer don't eat because they get sprayed with deer off once a week. And the deer sprays, they're mostly non-chemical. They're kitchen concoctions with mince and pepper and eggs and just not the best smelling the day it goes on, but they are effective.
I could always
All right.
tell when
Oh,
Jed applied his deer spray over here at the office.
floats downwind. Do deer eat high bush blueberries, or do they eat the plant?
They'll nibble. It's not a favorite of theirs. And every deer herd or population is going to be a little bit different, um, depending on what they've eaten coming up to the blueberries in your yard. Um, if they have a bunch of unsprayed hostas, that's a good reliable food source before they get there. They're not going to touch your blueberries. If they're coming in kind of starved, yeah, they're probably going to take a few bites.
And is bayberry the one that attracts ticks too?
No, that's barberry is where you tend to see ticks.
Barberry, okay.
That's another
Uh,
one that wasn't on the ban list. And is that also one that went down with the last run this past year with winged
I
yuan?
bel I believe it did. It's another one that we stopped carrying the same year. I pushed us to stop carrying winged euonymus.
Stefan, what size birdhouse do you recommend for attracting bluebirds?
Oh, I don't necessarily have the dimensions on me right now, but your typical bluebird house. If you are local here in Fairfield, feel free to stop into our nature store here at Larson Sanctuary, and Jane or Joan will be happy to get you set up. But I think it's going to be, as far as the opening goes, there's a lot of different types of them. I think it's 1.5 inches for the opening. Anything smaller than that, you're going to be attracting like house wrens or chickadees or titmice. They also sell these what are considered sparrow-resistant bluebird houses that will attract tree swallows and bluebirds. It's just this 1.5 inch strip along the top underneath the little roof. Apparently, house sparrows don't like those.
Hmm.
Hey, Jed, do you have any suggestions for a green fence? Like, what should people use?
Um, Hey, the ubiquitous arborvitae actually is a native, Thuya occidentalis, emerald green, or nigra, the dark American. Um, they're effective, they're native. Um, American holly is one of my favorites as well. We've planted a couple hedges of it. It's somewhat cost ineffective, but if cost isn't a factor, it's definitely a great choice.
And what about swamp white oaks? Where can people find them or buy them? Do you sell them?
Oliver Nurseries would be a great option.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I almost always have them in stock in different sizes from 2 inch up to, big 5 inch caliper specimens.
Very cool. Okay, let's see what else we have. Is it true one should plant only female grasses to avoid allergic reactions?
I haven't heard that one. I didn't
Uh,
realize that,
I've
honestly.
never heard that either.
Yeah, that could be a wives' tale.
Okay, good to know. Are beautyberry berries of interest to birds?
Yeah, very much so. And there's native and non-native beauty berries. Um, Calicarpa americana is a spectacular plant. That's our native. It's a great one. Calicarpa dichotoma is one of the Asian ones that tends to be a little bit more popular in the trade. They're both available.
I
And
would
so
just add to that, do your best to stick with the native on that. I have been noticing that the non-native has started to escape cultivation. I've seen it popping up in some spots that, yes, it was near, these specimen plants, but far enough away where I raised a couple alarms. So
Good to know.
I have a personal question. Um, my personal question. What three plants could I plant in my yard to get fruit from the spring through the fall? Like, how can I keep feeding birds with different plants throughout the season?
Juneberry would be the first to ripen, or one of the first to ripen. Amelanchier, great native. Very early spring white flower, small scale tree. There's also shrub forms of Amelanchier, or different shrub species, Amelanchier alnifolia. I forget. Hang on. But anyway, Juneberry would be a good early fruiter. Um, Blueberries, they're ripening in July and August. Um, and then, you know, crab apples is one. It's not technically native. A lot of people seem to be able to look the other way. but they're fruiting into fall. Of course, then you can also choose winterberry or hollies. They're all fruiting in the fall. But did you say food for yourself? Berries for yourself?
No, just for the birds.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but that sounds great. Juneberry, blueberry, and winterberry.
Yeah, hollyberry or hollies are definitely going to be on the later side.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And they'll persist into, well through the winter as well, the hollies.
And what about trees or shrubs that are doing well in the longer, hotter summers that we seem to be having? Are there things that like maybe didn't used to work here that work now?
Um, that are native.
Yeah, well, yeah. So
Um,
native plants are having more trouble with the heat, right?
so Well, I think I tend to notice things in my business, some things that maybe are non-native that are doing better with more heat or more mild winters. But actually, a couple of natives. Um, Southern magnolia is a great plant. Does give a really nice crop of beautiful little red seeds in the fall that I believe eastern bluebirds love.
Yeah,
Uh,
thrushes. It's a big favorite of thrushes.
Yep. I'm seeing them do better and better up here every year. So that would be one.
Awesome. Okay. I want to thank you guys for answering the questions. I think I got to most of the questions that weren't answered already in the chat. Joyce Lights, who is the executive director of Connecticut Audubon, would just like to say a few words before we sign off. I want to thank everyone for coming, but Joyce, what would you like to say?
Well, I just want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. And Stefan and Jed, what a great conversation around what we all can be doing. As everybody knows, our birds rely on us, and we can't do what we do without you. So thank you so much for all of that. But you're also probably aware of some of the legislation that we've put forward, or that we were working very hard on, including what was called SB 9 and is passed into law, our neonics ban bill, which does not take effect until October 2027. So while you're thinking about leaving it long and keeping the leaves and really monitoring and taking care of your yard, also think about talking with your landscaper about what they're putting down throughout the year, including the fall season. Um, and when spring, you'll hear us again on that with the spring as well. And definitely talk to your landscapers about whether they're using neonics, because they can use it until October of 2027. So we'll keep reminding people and ask them what they're putting on the shrubs on the sides of your lawn, because those are not included in that legislation, and they will still be able to use neonics on those shrubs. And that's where the birds, the bees, the butterflies are really hanging out. That's really important. Um, Melissa's going to be pulling the raffle, so you'll be hearing from us about that. As she said, this is recorded, so we'll be putting it onto the member portal. And I just want to thank you. You make this all possible, and you make it possible for us to see these beautiful birds. So thanks for joining us this evening.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Yeah. Thank you guys.